If you're approaching retirement in the next decade, the decisions you make about when to claim Social Security, how to manage your 401k, and whether you need Medicare supplements could cost you $100,000 or more. To understand why retirement planning got so complicated and what you can do about it, we need to see how we got here. These are the remarkable moments in history that transformed humanity from working until death to earning the right to stop. This is the complete story of retirement, a concept so recent that your great-great-grandmother probably never heard the word. Picture this. It's the year 10 AD, and you're a Roman legionnaire who's survived 16 brutal years of combat. Instead of dying with a sword in your hand, Emperor Augustus hands you a pension worth 13 times your annual salary. You're about to become one of history's first retirees, and the Latin word for your new status literally means to shout for joy. But let's rewind even further. Before retirement existed, the Romans had something called the lex Cionaria, or stork law. Just like storks care for their aging parents, Roman children were legally required to support their elderly relatives. It was a simple system: work until you can't, then become your children's responsibility. For most of human history, this was the only retirement plan anyone had, and today, more than 1 in 7 retirees are returning to this model, relying on their children for financial support. The real story of retirement begins in 13 BC when Augustus created the Aerarium Militare, the world's first formal pension system. Roman soldiers who completed 16 years of active duty plus 4 years in reserves received a retirement package that would make today's 401k look pathetic. A Praetorian Guard's pension was 20,000 sesterces, enough to live comfortably for about 12 years. But here's the catch. Life expectancy at retirement age was only about 7 years. Augustus had essentially created a system where most people would die before they could collect much. Sound familiar to today's concerns about outliving your savings? Fast forward 18 centuries and the Industrial Revolution changed everything. Factory owners noticed something troubling. Older workers were slowing down assembly lines, taking too many sick days, and occupying jobs that younger, stronger men desperately needed. The solution wasn't compassion, it was efficiency. Companies began pushing out aging workers, creating the first modern unemployment crisis among the elderly. Enter Otto von Bismarck, the Iron Chancellor of Germany, who would accidentally invent the modern retirement system while trying to prevent a socialist revolution. In 1881, facing growing labor unrest, Bismarck proposed something radical. The state would care for workers who became disabled from work by age and invalidity. When critics called him a socialist, Bismarck reportedly replied, "Call it socialism or whatever you like." By 1889, Germany became the first nation to adopt old-age social insurance, but Bismarck set the retirement age at 70. Why 70? Because most people died before reaching it. This wasn't generosity, it was political calculation. Bismarck could promise workers a pension while knowing the government would rarely have to pay. It wasn't until 1916, 18 years after Bismarck's death, that Germany lowered the retirement age to 65. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, America was conducting its own retirement experiments. In 1875, American Express created the first private sector pension plan, followed by the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad in 1884. These early plans were revolutionary but limited. The B&O plan provided up to 35% of pay to workers who retired at 65 and had worked for the company for at least 10 years. But private pensions covered only a tiny fraction of American workers. Everything changed on August 14, 1935, when Franklin D. Roosevelt signed the Social Security Act into law. The architect was Secretary of Labor Francis Perkins, who organized the committee that designed America's safety net. But why did they choose 65 as the retirement age? According to Robert Myers, a Social Security Administration official who helped create the system, age 65 was picked because 60 was too young and 70 was too old, so we split the difference. The choice of 65 wasn't based on science or careful study of human aging. It was a compromise, and it had profound consequences. In 1930, life expectancy at birth was 58 for men and 62 for women. But here's what most people don't understand. Low life expectancy was largely due to high infant mortality. For men who survived to age 21, almost 54% could expect to live to 65. Those who reached 65 could expect to collect benefits for almost 13 years. On January 31, 1940, the first Social Security check was issued. Check number 001 went to Ida Mae Fuller, a Vermont woman who had paid exactly $24.75 in Social Security taxes over 3 years. Fuller had simply stopped by the Social Security office in Rutland to ask about benefits. That $22.54 check launched the most successful anti-poverty program in American history. Fuller's story reveals the system's early generosity. She collected benefits for 35 years until her death at age 100, receiving a total of $22,888.92, nearly 925 times what she had contributed. Today, choosing when to claim Social Security at 62, 67, or 70 can mean a difference of $100,000 or more in lifetime benefits. Interestingly, Fuller had been a classmate of future President Calvin Coolidge in school, and by the 1970s, she opposed increasing Social Security benefits, saying, "Every time they raise it, they raise the amount taken away from the working people who pay into it." For decades, the American retirement system relied on what experts called the three-legged stool: Social Security, employer pensions, and personal savings. Company pensions grew rapidly after World War II, when wage controls made benefits packages attractive alternatives to salary increases. By 1979, 38% of private sector workers had traditional pensions. Then came 1978, and a provision buried in the Revenue Act would accidentally destroy the pension system. Section 401(k) was intended as a minor tax benefit for highly compensated executives. But Ted Benna, a benefits consultant, saw something revolutionary in that obscure tax code. While redesigning a retirement program for a bank client, Benna realized 401(k) could create tax-deferred savings accounts for all employees. The bank rejected Benna's idea because their attorney didn't want them doing something that had never been done before. So on January 1, 1981, the first 401(k) plan launched at Benna's own company, the Johnson Companies. Benna had no idea he was destroying the American retirement system. The 401(k) was never intended to replace pensions. As Benna later said, it wasn't expected to be a big thing. But employers saw an opportunity. Why guarantee workers a specific retirement income when you could shift all the risk to employees? Traditional pensions began disappearing. By 2024, only 13% of private sector workers have traditional pensions. Today, 401(k) plans hold more than $7 trillion in assets and serve over 60 million workers through providers like Fidelity, Vanguard, and Empower. But Benna himself calls his creation a monster. He regrets the high fees, the system's reliance on stock market volatility, and how it helped open the door for Wall Street to make even more money. The man who invented modern retirement savings thinks he created a disaster. The numbers support Benna's concerns. Today, 25% of retirees have nothing saved for retirement. More than 1 in 7 retirees rely on their children for financial support. We've come full circle to the Roman Stork Law. 79% of Americans believe the nation faces a retirement crisis, up from 67% in 2020. But here's what this means for your retirement. If you're 50 or older, you can make catch-up contributions to both 401(k) and IRAs, an extra $7,500 to your 401(k) and $1,000 to traditional or Roth IRAs in 2024. The Secure Act 2.0 has also increased required minimum distribution ages, giving you more time to let investments grow before mandatory withdrawals begin at age 73. The demographics are terrifying. In 1950, there were 7.2 working-age people for every retiree in developed countries. By 2010, that ratio had dropped to 4.1. It's projected to reach just 2.1 by 2050. The system Augustus created for a few thousand soldiers now supports hundreds of millions of people living decades longer than anyone anticipated. and healthcare costs make everything worse. The average 65-year-old couple will spend $315,000 on healthcare in retirement, which is why understanding Medicare enrollment and supplemental insurance options becomes critical when you turn 65. Long-term care insurance, which 70% of seniors will need, can cost $50,000 annually. Expenses that can devastate even well-planned retirement savings. Countries worldwide are raising retirement ages in desperation. Denmark plans to increase the retirement age from 67 to 74. In 2024, China announced its first retirement age increase since the 1950s, gradually raising ages for different groups. The global retirement system is breaking under the weight of human longevity. Life expectancy has roughly doubled since the mid-19th century, from 39.4 years in 1850 to 79.6 years today. A 65-year-old Australian woman now expects to live 23 years in retirement, compared to 12 years in 1895. We've created a system where people spend nearly as many years retired as they do working. The average American now retires at 62, though many believe the ideal age is 63. But 34% of workers plan to retire after 65, and 13% have no plans to retire at all. The number of workers over 75 is expected to nearly double over the next decade. So what can you do? Financial advisors often recommend the 4% withdrawal rule, withdrawing no more than 4% of your portfolio annually to avoid outliving your money. They also suggest maximizing employer 401k matches. It's free money, considering Roth IRA conversions during lower income years, and diversifying beyond just 401ks. Some retirees are turning to annuities for guaranteed income, while others focus on target date funds that automatically adjust risk as you age. Social Security benefits receive annual cost of living adjustments, COLA, to combat inflation, but the timing of when you claim can dramatically impact your lifetime benefits. Claiming at 62 reduces your benefit permanently, while waiting until age 70 can increase it by 32% beyond your full retirement age. From Augustus's military pensions to today's 401k crisis, retirement has evolved from an impossible dream to a universal expectation to a looming catastrophe. We've transformed from a species that worked until death to one that expects decades of leisure. Whether that transformation represents humanity's greatest achievement or its most dangerous miscalculation may depend on what we do next. The word retirement still means to shout for joy in Latin. Whether future generations will have reason to shout depends on how we solve the crisis we've created by living too long, and whether we make the right financial decisions along the way.